Hello and welcome to the Stride Reports Transfer Value Rankings unveiling. It's our first ever time doing this, and we're really excited to show you what we've been working on. To unveil the men's list with me today, we have none other but Finn Burney. How are you doing today?
Doing fantastic. Hello, everyone. It feels wonderful to be here, and I'm very excited to begin this brand new segment. It's been a long time coming, and there's been a lot of behind the scenes work. So to be sat here finally recording it feels very good.
Absolutely. So why don't we kind of first start with explaining what the concept of a transfer value ranking is. So if people have heard of maybe trade value rankings, Bill Simmons made this famous with the NBA. We are doing a similar concept with the NCAA distance running community. So we are looking at everyone from the 800 up all the way to cross country. Anyone who runs in any of those events, we considered eligible for our rankings today. And so a big part of these rankings are obviously talent. We want to see, or we're not ranking someone that we don't think can be competitive at the national stage, but also we're taking into consideration eligibility. So the way we kind of framed it is, if you were a coach and you were looking out on the transfer portal and you saw two different athletes, which one of them would be more valuable for you to go out and spend your scholarship dollars on? And now with the transfer portal being such a thing, we saw so many transfers, right, Finn, over the last summer. I mean, we saw New Mexico the women's team completely implode, and Florida being a huge beneficiary of that. So for us, it's a way of really ranking the men and women that we really think will make a big impact over the next few years. And so like incoming freshmen can play a big part in that, but still those going to their senior year, especially if they're one of the best in the country, can also play a big part in that, right?
Yes, I completely agree. And obviously we're going to be looking at a few factors as mentioned. Eligibility is going to be very important. There's people talent-wise that is superb, but if they're running low on eligibility, they may not be as desirable as those brand new incoming freshmen who have been superb in their high school careers thus far and have 4 seasons of eligibility for cross, indoors, and outdoors. And I think it's important to also discuss that this is if they were to transfer at this very current moment, before this cross-country season has begun. So anything that they've done at these kind of, as I would call them, compliance meets so far doesn't get factored in. So it's literally just focusing on if they were to go very first day of school in August. So
right, and because I think even thing, like these compliance meets, like you said, even if they did run in them, they could probably still get eligibility back if they didn't
exactly
the rest of the season.
And I think another thing that's also important, as Ben mentioned, we're looking at runners from 800 meters all the way up to cross country, 10,000 meters sort of thing. And you may see 800 meter runners ranked highly. That's because they are medal contenders for their respective events. And just because they don't do cross doesn't make them any less valuable. So I think that's an important consideration. Obviously, we're going to be talking about athletes who have that range of all the way from 1500 to 10K, but then we're going to be talking about some real pure 800 meter guys who are truly phenomenal at that event and rightly deserve a spot on this list.
Yeah, and this is a very obviously highly subjective list. We've put in, as Finn mentioned earlier, a lot of work, a lot of research, because we had to decide, like, how do you value an 800 meter runner who's not really giving you anything in cross country, but is giving you so much on the indoor and outdoor ovals? Likewise, how do you compare someone who maybe isn't giving you that much value on the track, but is a great cross country runner? And then on top of all of that, how do you value maybe a national title favorite who is going into their last season of eligibility compared with someone who is maybe an All-American contender or All-American favorite in maybe 3 different seasons, but they have 3 or 4 years of eligibility? How do we rank those different people? So just to reiterate, this is not a ranking of who we think is the best runners in the country. We have separate rankings for that. We have our cross country rankings that have just that came out this summer. This is not that. This is, what do we see this like, what is the value of this person combined with their talent and their eligibility together. So we just want to make that very clear before we get started. So anything else on that before we start with our honorable mention?
No, I think the more eligibility, the better it's going to look. So I just leave that out there because I know there's going to be a couple names on the list where people are saying, oh, why is that person so like low down on the list? And it's going to be an eligibility, and we will do our very best to explain their eligibility as it stands on TIFAs at this moment.
Yes, and that's a good point to touch on as well before we get going. We did the research through TIFers, and we did a little bit of talking with coaches over the summer, just trying to determine eligibility. We did our best. I'm sure there's going to be a few surprises in there that we hear about, but we did a ton of research to make sure that the eligibility that we have listed next to each of these athletes, their cross country, indoor, and outdoor eligibility, how many seasons they have for each one of those, is as accurate as possible. So with that said, let's jump in and talk about, we have 10 honorable mention names. I will get us started with 5 men. And our first group of 5 here, we have from Eastern Kentucky, Abdel Hakim Abduzir, who we believe has 1 year of eligibility across all seasons. Great steeplechase star, showed a lot over the last year. Next, we have Jesse Hamlin, who we believe has 3 seasons of cross country, 2 for indoor and outdoor. Obviously had a huge breakout indoor season. We didn't really get to see him this past outdoor season, but his great 3K that qualified for him in the indoor meet, and also looking like he's taking a lot of steps forward on the grass as well, which is really exciting. Next, we have Shea McAvoy, who we believe has 2 years of eligibility across all seasons, a bona fide cross-country star who we're excited about seeing over the next few years as he continues to improve there, and as well showing a little bit more value on the track. Next, we have Aaron Las Harris, who we believe has 1 year of cross, 2 indoor eligibility seasons, and 1 outdoor. The new Northern Arizona runner, really solid across the board, and I think we're going to see a lot from him this cross-country season. Brian Masai, next up, the freshman, the rising sophomore from Akron, who this past outdoor season really showed his talent across the longer distances. We believe he has 4 seasons of cross country, 3 on the indoor and outdoor ovals. So this is a guy who has shown that he has a ton of talent. We haven't really seen him put together at the national stage yet, but that eligibility is tantalizing. What do you like about any of these guys on this list?
I think a lot of them, as you mentioned, the eligibility is favorable for them. They're showing a lot of talent. As you mentioned, Brian Masai shows a tremendous amount of talent. He has the years now in his favor to then show that at the national meets. And I think that's what makes a lot of these guys honorable mentions. We may not have necessarily seen it from them just yet, but with eligibility in his favor, he has plenty of time to show just how good he is. And we've seen sparks of it, and we're looking forward to seeing it at those national meets and those bigger meets. So I think for me, he's one of those that's like super important.
Super exciting, right?
Yes. Probably one of the most exciting people at the moment. So
absolutely. And from Eastern Kentucky, Abduzir, we saw him finish 6th place at this last steeplechase, this last outdoor season. We didn't see him qualify for NCAAs on the grass. He was 13th at the Southeast Regional, just missed qualifying. I think if we had seen him run at the national meet and we had seen a little bit better of a performance from him at that national meet, then I think he would have had a strong case as someone that we could have put on this list. And then I think Aaron Las Harris, we haven't seen him since this past fall. If he had put together a really good track season as well, I think he's someone that maybe ends up in our top 50 as well. But while there's a lot to like about this group, there are some question marks, and that's ultimately why they didn't land in our top 50.
Absolutely. And I think Las Harris is a good example. doesn't have too much eligibility left. We've seen his talent. We saw his world cross result. We saw how fast he was able to run unattached this outdoor season. So we're expecting big things from him, but he's not going to be around too much longer. So he kind of needs to get his work done while he's there. And that transfer is very, very exciting. And I think he's going to be a key cog in the machine for NAU this season. And he could be that kind of swing, whether they're going to win it again or whether they're going to second, third sort of thing. So he's going to be a big player. But as is mentioned, eligibility is what is slightly setting him back and probably one of his only drawbacks at the moment.
Absolutely. All right, Finn, why don't you walk us through the next 5 names on our honorable mention before we hit our top 50?
We have brand new freshman Rocky Hansen, Reinhard Harrison, Abdullah Hassan, Aaron Solomon, and Joey Noakes. So Rocky Hansen, fresh out of high school, he's off to Wake Forest. He was one of the multitude of sub 4-minute milers this year. He has tremendous range. He, as far as his 2-mile goes, 8:32. Now that was one of the fastest times this year. Coming out of high school, he's going to be a tremendous talent. He's got all 4 years, so we're expecting big things from him. But as mentioned, he's a true freshman. We don't know how true freshmen are going to translate to the NCAA. It's a huge step up, but he's one of those guys who has the talent to do so. Moving on, Reinhard Harrison. He's actually been in college 1 year, but he didn't run any of his seasons, so he, again, has all 4 seasons of eligibility, cross, indoors, out. He won I believe he actually won the US Under 20 1500 meter title this year pretty comfortably. He's run 3:37 for 1500 racing unattached. So he's in tremendous form. Momentum's in his favor. He was a strong cross-country runner back in high school. So we're expecting big things from him. And it's one of those, he's still young. He's got all years ahead of him. So pretty excited. Abdul Hassan. He is one of the staple 800-meter runners in the NCAA. He's been superb. And I would have said the only drawback for him actually this year is he's only got 1 season of eligibility, both indoors and outdoors. And I think we probably are expecting another All-American finish from him. But other than that, we don't really know what to expect. He could potentially be in the national title conversation. He is one of the fastest, but due to this lack of eligibility, it's very hard to rank him above some of the other names. Then moving on, Aaron Solomon, another true freshman standout. Superb 800-meter runner, won NXN, which I think to many people was a bit of a shock. But he can show that he's got that track range and that cross-country range. I think what potentially why he sits off this list at the moment is his outdoor season. I believe he was struggling with a couple of injury issues and he didn't race quite how we expected, especially after seeing him that indoor season. He was superb. So again, I think it's going to be one of those that he's got those 4 years to prove himself and we can see him prove himself. And I know I didn't mention it, but he's off to Northern Arizona to join his brother. And finally, Joey Noakes, BYU. He has 2 seasons of eligibility across the board. He's been fantastic so far. He just missed out on an All-American spot in cross-country this past season, 52nd. But he was actually one of their back-end guys. And to think that they had 7 in the top 52 is mind-blowing to me. But he's one of those guys, he's got the times on track. And he's got that eligibility and he can take that next step within the next 2 years. So those are all of the honorable mentions. So I guess we'll start with our first name on the big list.
Yeah, before we do that, I just want to touch on a few of those guys real quick. Yeah,
Course,
you said, Noakes, I think if he can prove that he can be an All-American on the track, then I think he's someone that potentially is on this list again next year, even with 1 year less eligibility, because we all expect him to be one of the best cross-country runners in the country this coming year. And if you can pair that with some performances on the indoor and outdoor oval, then I think that's really exciting. The freshmen, it's just hard. I mean, with Solomon and Hanson, there's other freshmen within the top 50. We're really splitting hairs here. They are fantastic. This was a great incoming freshman class. I don't think there's a huge argument for them not being on there, other than we just didn't have room. And then Hassan, like if he, I think we've seen flashes. We just need a little bit more consistency out of him, and I think that's ultimately what left him off this list, unfortunately. And then Reinhard Harrison, I think he was one of our hardest names to leave off. Just that gap year, you don't really know. He showed unattached that he still has that talent and looks like he's improving. So I think he's someone, when we look back in this list in maybe 3 months or 6 months, we're like, oh man, we really should have had him in the top 50. So I think he's a really exciting name to keep an eye on as we move forward. But yeah, all these names on the honorable mention. Finn and I had a hard time getting, like, we had like 20 names and the honorable mention, condensing this down to 10. There's so many good men in the NCAA that are coming through or have been in the system for a while. So this was a very hard discussion. So these 10 just missed out, but we wanted to make sure we highlighted them before we get into our top 50. And with that said, let's get into that top 50. So I'll read off our first 5 names from 50th to 46th. So coming in at number 50 on the Stride Report's transfer value rankings, we have Tyrone Gores, who incoming freshman going to Washington. We have Cole Matheson at 49, another incoming freshman. At 48, we have BYU's David Thompson. At 47, we have Oklahoma State Cowboy Ryan Shoppy. And then 46th, we have his teammate in Stillwater, Mehdi Inori, great 800-meter runner. Let's hear about some of the guys that you had on out of this group, and what you thought was maybe some pros and cons for them in the transfer value.
Okay, so I'll begin. I was tasked with looking at Tyrone Gores, now true freshman, heading to Washington. Washington is notorious for its milers, but they've also shown that they have fantastic distance runners. We've seen Brian Fay. Now, Tyrone Gores is probably one of those sleeper picks when it comes to the high schoolers. He was always there and thereabouts. Unfortunately, he never quite got to the very podium. But I'll read off his times because they speak for themselves. So, in the mile, 4:05, 3K, 8:04, 2 mile, 8:36, 5K, 13:45, and for me, this is the one that really sets him apart from a couple of the others. Is he's already done a 10K on the track. That 10K was done in 29 flat. And I think that speaks volumes. Like, he's going to be one of the most prepared guys as we move into that cross season, and he's going to be the real deal. And I remember talking when we were discussing our rankings for cross country, he for me was freshman. I expected to shine just with having that 10K experience on the track, and that's a difficult race to run. And as mentioned, he's got that range as well. So you're looking at a 4:05 mile and a cracking 2 mile. So I think he makes that list because he has those 4 years to come, and we're already expecting pretty big things from him. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I mean, he is someone I think that's going to be a huge X factor coming into this cross country season for Washington. If he can perform right away, then that he vaults them, I think, to another level. And I think they're going to need him. And like you said, that 10K on the track is huge to show that he can step up in distance. We saw that from some of the other incoming freshmen in terms of being able to run 8K on the grass. And that, I think, is a very good sign for us because unlike the women's side, there is a big jump when it comes from high school to college on the grass. You're going from 5Ks to 8K and 10K. That's a significant difference. So that the fact that he's shown an ability to run a solid 10K is huge. And when you compare him to someone like Cole Matheson, has great PRs as well, but he really showed out during the national title competitions on the grass. 4th at NXN, 1st at Champ Sports. we just are super excited about him as he goes to Colorado, and is going to be, I think, the next one of their next great long distance stars. And he has obviously full eligibility. And again, we're projecting out a little bit, but the times and the experience that both of these guys have on the grass just makes them super tantalizing moving forward.
No, I completely agree, and it's one of those two are pretty interchangeable. You see Matheson, as you mentioned, he won Champ Sports, which was a huge performance, and I think kind of solidified what was a very strong and very consistent cross-country season for him. And I think while they don't have that experience, those teams are going to need those two guys to have that almost instant impact for them. And I think those are two guys that are very capable, and that's why they're on this list, against opposed to some of the others. I think like we've seen it from them, and as mentioned, Gores, that 10K is really, really strong, and I think that's going to work in his favor as we move straight into cross. As you mentioned, it's a huge jump from high school to NCAA.
And both of those guys, I think we are confident in their ability to get even better as the distance gets longer. And I think that, unlike maybe some of these other guys below or even above them, I don't know if you can necessarily say the same. And I think that's why we felt comfortable putting them within our top 50. Let's talk about maybe some of the veterans within this group. I'll briefly just touch on the Oklahoma State duo. Ryan Shappy really showed signs last year of being maybe one of the more complete runners in the NCAA. His indoor season, fantastic, 741 in the 3K, anchored DMR title. He looked so good at times, just in the mile, whether it's in the DMR or in the 3K. He comes out during the outdoor season, runs 13:37. Doesn't have, I think, the success that he would have hoped in the 1500 meter at regionals. But he's also someone that is very productive on the grass as well, 53rd at NCAAs this past season. And then his teammate, Mehdi Inori, I think is someone else who we like, has 2 seasons of eligibility in indoors, 1 in outdoor, and was really during that like indoor outdoor season last year really starting to show that he was one of the better 800 meter guys in the country, and really seemed to take a jump forward. So if he can continue that, I think we're really excited about him.
No, I think going off that with Yunori is he was proving that he was the most consistent 146 runner in the country. As we transitioned into outdoors, he just kept doing it. It felt like every single meet of the weekend, there was 146, 146, 146. And yeah, he was superb. And I think that was really exciting for him. Also looking at Davin Thompson, sat there at 48, another guy with 2 seasons of eligibility to go. We didn't see him this outdoor season, but we did get to see a very, very strong 13:35 during the indoor season back in December. He was one of those that was very strong in cross, All-American performance, and he's one of those BYU guys that they seem to get better year on year on year. And I think he's going to be a guy that they're also going to count on coming in top 30 almost every single year. So you're looking at an All-American on the grass, but I think his times outdoors and indoors are going to be reflective of someone that has the potential to be an All-American on both of those circuits.
Yes, and I think he's very similar to Joey Noakes, who we talked about. It's very similar, obviously, to his twin brother as well, who we'll talk about in a second. Has those great times on the track. We just haven't seen them really put it together at the national stage for track yet, but they certainly have the ability. And then, like you said, you're getting 2 years of All-American finishes from them on the grass, which just is super, super valuable, and is something that on almost any other team, they're that lead scorer or low stick for teams that you can really build a team around. Whereas at BYU, they're just another group in that top 5, which is pretty wild. Let's go on to the next 5 on our list. Starting at 45 from Furman, we have Dylan Schubert. 44, Cole Sprout of Stanford. As we mentioned, 43, Creed Thompson from BYU. 42, another 800-meter specialist, Nicholas Plant from Virginia Tech. And coming in at 41, breakout steeplechase star, Nathan Mountain of Virginia. Dylan Schubert, I mean, we just talked about Thompson a little bit. Similar in the regard of, except for I think even better when it comes to the grass. This is a guy who was one of the best cross country runners in the country last year, 11th place at NCAA's, but was just super consistent throughout the year. 12th at Nuttycombe, seemed to just really hit his stride last year. He does have, we do believe, 2 full years of eligibility. While the track performances maybe leave a little to be left to be desired, it's hard to know whether he's going to be an All-American in either the indoor or outdoor season. You're looking at a guy who could potentially be a top 10 guy in cross the next 2 years, and maybe even by his senior year, one of those title contenders. And if you have that kind of talent, we have to believe that if he can stay healthy during the track seasons, he's going to at least provide you something. And talking about Creed Thompson as well, kind of in that same light, we talked about David Thompson, a lot of value on the grass, shown signs on the track. And if he can continue that and continue to produce that way, he's going to be at bare minimum one of like the top 40 most valuable guys in the country.
Yes, I couldn't agree more with that analysis. Schubert, as we saw, superb cross season. Probably the race of his life at NCAA's, and it was a fantastic finish. It was good indoors, then outdoors we didn't get to see him. Presumably that was red shirt. We hope it wasn't anything injury related, but he's going to be one of those that's coming back with a lot of momentum and a lot of confidence from a huge cross-country season. And looking at someone else who is a superb cross runner, at 44, Cole Sprout. Now, a couple of people may be wondering why Sprout is as low as he is, and that is kind of a difficult one. We've seen just how good he can be. Like indoor season, 7:44 3K, fantastic result, but where he lacks is sometimes he can be a little inconsistent, and that tends to be injury related, which a lot of the times is no fault of your own, and it's difficult because we never want to see any athlete get injured. But his result at National Cross last year, slipping back into the 100ths, which obviously didn't help out Stanford out at all, but it wasn't something that he could help. So with the number of hiccups on his resume, I think that's why he slightly slips down. Talent-wise, he is up there with some of the very best. So it's very hard to know exactly what you're getting, and Cole Sprout on a healthy and good day is one of the best runners in the country, but we need those healthy and good days all the time. So that's where we kind of stand with him. I don't know if you want to expand upon that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, 2 seasons of eligibility in cross country, 2 indoors. I think we believe he only has 1 year left outdoors. But yeah, from a talent perspective, this is a top 10, top 15 kind of runner. In terms of like, if he had this kind of eligibility, had stayed healthy, he probably is finishing top 15 at NCAA's in the grass, probably All-American in both the indoor and outdoor seasons last year. It's just, like you said, that inconsistency that comes from just not being healthy all the time. And so he was a really hard person to land on because of that. And similarly, guys that we had a hard time landing on, but for different reasons, Nicholas Plant, Nathan Mountain. Plant was a true freshman last year, has 3 seasons of eligibility indoor and outdoors, really broke out in a big way for Virginia Tech in the 800, winning that ACC championship. And then Nathan Mountain, we haven't really seen him on the grass yet, but he's shown, at least in the outdoor season, how valuable he can be in the steeplechase. I think if we had seen him show some value in cross country, then he's much higher up. He has 3 seasons of grass eligibility left. We believe 2 for each of the track seasons. He was really hard to land on because of that, and I think he's someone we could also look back on and being like, oh yeah, he should have been in like our top 30. But from what we've seen from him so far, I think 41's where we landed. What are your thoughts on those two guys? And I guess what do you see Plant turning into as he continues to develop?
I think when looking at Plant, there was only one person that I think had a better freshman 800-meter season than him, and that was Handel Roden, who we
Mhm.
will talk about later in this list. Spoiler alert. But Plant was fantastic. It felt like he couldn't put a foot wrong. He just he made it look so easy all the time. We saw he was first at ACCs, and that's a hard conference to win in the 800 meters. And I think with him, he's going to be riding that confidence as he moves into his sophomore year. And while it's likely that we won't see too much of him on the grass, I imagine we'll see a couple runs here and there, but his talent doesn't lie on the grass. And he has a lot of eligibility to burn, and I think we're seeing one of the next great 800-meter athletes in Plant. And then as far as Mountain goes, Mountain's one of those, I think he's in for a very strong cross season. If his track season was anything to go by, he was fantastic at the steeplechase. He's also a very handy miler as well. We saw that throughout indoor season. He's got that very sneaky good speed. And I think he is going to make that jump. And it's one of those, it's a momentum thing too. The momentum is going to carry on. If he's had a good summer of training, he's going to be fit, ready to go. Also, it does happen that cross country this year is hosted by UVA. So we're presuming that they're going to make that meet, and he will most likely be one of those guys in that team. So that can also factor in how well he's going to perform. But I think he's going to be someone that we're anticipating a jump from him, particularly on the grass, because he's been superb thus far on the track.
Absolutely. Yeah. He's one of the big reasons I like Virginia this year. And I think I can agree with you more that I think he's going to take a big step up and be a valuable, maybe he's not a low stick, but he's a very valuable 3 through 5 kind of runner for them. And I'm really excited to see. He's certainly someone that could rise and Plant, like you said, I would like to see him lower his PRs a little bit in the 800, but he's shown such good tactical awareness, winning that ACC title, navigating rounds through NCAAs. Like in regionals, I really like what we've seen from him from a tactical perspective. If he can combine that with I'm not asking for like a full second improvement. If we can even say like a half second or so improvement, I think that's huge for him and just makes him a little bit more versatile in the kind of races he can run and win. So both of these guys, I think, are potential risers because of their good amount of eligibility and a lot of unforeseen or unseen so far potential. So yeah, it's a really interesting group. Let's move on to our next group of 5, and that is started by Aiden McCarthy at 40th. At 39th, we have from Wisconsin, Bob Liking. Number 38, Victor Shitsama. 37, Yassine Abdallah. And coming in at 36, Connor Murphy. So a lot of these guys don't have a ton of eligibility. McCarthy kind of leads the list in terms of what he has left. He has 2 full years of cross country and outdoor, 3 seasons indoors. Bob Liking has 2 cross, 3 indoor, 1 outdoor. We'll see if he actually uses all 3 of those seasons indoor. And then Shitsama, we believe, has 1 full year as well. Who do like so I guess with McCarthy, some people might be surprised to see him this high, but what do we like about him that led us to land him at the 40 spot?
I think McCarthy burst onto the scene with the 800. He obviously had a very good indoor season. He broke 4 in the mile, but to then see him take that step in the 800, I don't think anyone bar him and his coaching staff were expecting him to be as good as he was and be as have that longevity throughout the season. I think his slowest race was a pre-race, and that was still 150. He was running 147 so consistently And then we even got to see him on 2 occasions crack that 147 barrier. And it came at a time where he needed it the most, and we saw him finish 7th outdoors. And I think one thing that may surprise a lot of people, he's actually surprisingly good at cross country. For someone as 800 meter focused as he was this outdoor season, I mean, he's run under 24 minutes for the 8K cross country. And I believe, I'll just double check this now, but when it came to the West region, which is notoriously one of the more difficult regions, he was 51st in the West, which is a very good result for someone who is showing to be more speed focused, which is, I think, why he finds himself as high as he does on this list, because he's got the eligibility in his favor. And he actually does add, if a team were to pick him up now, he does add a lot of value. He could be your 5th guy on a cross-country team, like 5th to 7th. Like, I think that for an 800 meter guy, that's what he offers, whereas someone like Plant doesn't necessarily offer that combination.
Right. Yeah. I mean, his ability in the 800 and 1500 in the middle distances is why he's ranked, but not being a complete zero when it comes to cross country is a huge asset. Like you said, you have someone else that can at least be a depth scoring piece, or someone who maybe breaks out and has a great day and all of a sudden is a little bit more than that. He's just another option, especially for teams like we're talking about teams who are looking to maybe qualify for the national meet. He would be such a big pickup as just another piece that could be helpful as you push towards nationals. Maybe some of the higher end teams like the BYUs of the world, that there isn't as much value there, but for the vast majority of NCAA teams, he provides a very solid amount of value in cross country. And then you just talk about his track times. He is very solid in the middle distances. Victor Shitsama is someone that I really like as well. He provides great value in steeplechase outdoors, and then as well in cross country. Only 1 year left. We believe he has run 4 outdoor seasons. We believe he will be able to get a waiver for that outdoor season this year. So we'll see about that. And then Bob Liking, I mean, he's almost as consistent as they come during the cross country season, has proven that he can make it to NCAA finals in the outdoor season in the 10K. He's shown some good times throughout the indoor season, but cross country is really where he shows his value. All-American again this last year, 34th, won the Big Ten title. And with 2 seasons of cross country, you just really like that consistency and that upside for some scoring potential on the track.
Absolutely. I think with Liking, going back to the point, if a team were to pick him up now, he's an automatic low stick for a lot of teams in the NCAA, which is where I think he ranks more favorably because it's cross country. But then we did see him this outdoor season. He was really good in the 10K. I think potentially a lot stronger than a lot of people anticipated. His 5K is very good. He's really all-rounded, and he does have that eligibility to kind of back it up as well. While he may only have 1 season of eligibility for outdoors, you're looking at him potentially getting an All-American spot in that 10K, which is huge for a team. And then 2 for cross-country, that's why he's ranked. 2 for cross-country is huge. So he's going to be extremely important. As far as Yassine Abdallah goes, we believe he has 2 cross, 2 indoors, 1 outdoor.
One cross, I think. Or 1 cross country, I believe.
Beg my pardon. Sorry. So 1 cross country, 2 indoors, 1 outdoor. Cross country, he's been superb in the past. Last year, I don't think he finished to where he thought he would, and I think he was 33rd, 32nd?
33rd. Yeah.
33rd. So I think you can expect more from him. I think he is someone that has the capabilities of being a top 25, top 20, even top 10 runner. Talent-wise, he's fantastic, and we saw it indoors. He was superb. Outdoors, it was a bit of a mixed bag. We saw some very good times. He was strong at championships, but I think looking at his eligibility, cross is going to be the one that I think you're going to get a lot from him. And as scoring perspective goes at conference meets, he's a strong indoor runner too. So he's a very desirable person to have. And I think due to the potential lack of eligibility in a couple of areas is why he potentially slips down this list a bit further than some people may anticipate.
If he had 2 full years of eligibility, I think he's in our top 20 because you're
Agree.
talking about someone in all 3 seasons is probably going to be an All-American. Like,
Yes.
he's going to be an All-American in cross country. He was, let's see, 12th at indoors in the 3K last year. Like, and I think he would probably be pretty down about that result after running 7:42. Like, I think we can expect him to be an All-American there this year. And then he was 12th in the 5K this past year. Like, again, he's not maybe an All-American lock, but I would expect him to be an All-American across 3 different seasons, which is not something you can say about really almost anybody that we've talked about on this list so far. We just wish he had a little bit more eligibility for it. Talking about someone who has a little bit more eligibility, Connor Murphy, 2 seasons of cross, 2 indoors, 1 outdoors, super versatile runner, 800, 1500 meter runner, can do both almost equally well. What are you excited to see from him moving forward?
I think what you mentioned is he can do both equally well. He's extremely versatile on the track, and if a coach were to pick him up, you can put him in pretty much whatever event, and he's going to excel in that when it comes to indoors and outdoors. And as mentioned, he only has 1 eligibility or 1 season of eligibility outdoors, it looks like, and then he has 2 indoors. Indoors, he was fantastic in the mile. Let me just see. He was 6th place in the mile indoors. And then outdoors, he decided to focus on the 800, which is a fairly big change up. And then he does equally as well, finishing 5th in that 800 meter final in 1:46, which is a superb time to be able to run not just an 800 meter focused guy, but a miler focused guy. You're looking at 3:55 and 1:46, 2 superb times. He's very desirable, and his cross is fairly okay. And I think going back to this, like, someone that has all 3 is very exciting. Obviously, we're going to focus mainly on indoors and outdoors, but he could work in a cross setting too.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about him as a DMR piece as well. I mean, hugely valuable. Like, he can
Yes.
run the 800, the 1200, the 1600 meter like he can do all the. I mean, heck, he could probably run a pretty good 400 meter like too. Like,
Yeah.
he is someone that in the indoor season with those 2 seasons of eligibility is like, whether he runs the DMR or not, he gives you a great option. And then individually as well, you would expect him to be an All-American and just a really exciting runner. And someone, and we'll transition to maybe our next 5. We had a hard time deciding between him or Isaac Baston at that 35th spot, the Drake Star in the mile. We actually should maybe call this five-man group Baston and the freshman here, because the next 4 men are all incoming freshmen. We have Leo Young headed to Stanford, Connor Burns headed to Oregon, Lex Young, and then we have Tanoda Matsada landing at the 31st spot. So let's start with Baston. Obviously proved last year, especially during the indoor season, a true threat to win a title, a national title in the mile. Comes out, finishes 7th in the 1500 meter in kind of a crazy race, but one that we had high expectations for. And I think if you run that again, he could absolutely finish top 3. Only 1 year of eligibility across the board. Again, not a complete zero during the cross country season as well. Was 9th at Midwest. Didn't have a great national meet, finishing 192nd, but someone that you can kind of put in there and you're not going to feel terrible about being within your top 7 by any means. But he doesn't quite have the same versatility as someone like Murphy, but I think we believe his higher end ability to win a national title ultimately gave him the edge, despite having a little less eligibility.
I completely agree. as you mentioned, he's one of those that isn't completely redundant on the grass. He seems to qualify for nationals every year as an individual, does a cracking job in that Midwest region. And unfortunately, as you said, like, his result this year wasn't as strong, but everyone thinks of him as that indoor and that outdoor runner. He has arguably the most devastating close out of anyone in that miler group, and he almost feels like an all-American lock in both the mile and the 1500, which is why, despite only having one season of eligibility across the board, I think he's a must-have, and I think having him at 35th place, I think is justifiable for me. Beginning with one of the freshmen, so one of the twins, Leo Young. So Leo Young obviously is off to Stanford, all 4 seasons of eligibility. On the track, he's been slightly outshone by his brother, but then when it came to cross country, we saw him win the under-20 championships for Team USA, then go to the World Cross Country Championships and finish 16th. And the World Cross Country Championships for under-20s, for anyone that doesn't know, is an 8K. So that translates very nicely into the NCAA season. And he then obviously have to make that step up to 10K for nationals. And he's proved it on the cross course. We've seen him and his brother tear up the high school scene. Unfortunately, they didn't quite run as well as they wanted to at the NXN meet, but that still doesn't take away from the fact that they have been consistently an extremely good dynamic duo. I don't know what you want to add on to that.
Yeah, I mean, they're guys that it would not be surprising to see them be immediate contributors to Stanford. I wrote about them in the Stanford preview for our team rankings. I think expecting them to be maybe All-Americans right off the bat is a little much, but I think they could absolutely be top 60 guys, and they could also just be 3-time All-Americans after that. Like, they are extremely talented when it comes to cross country, and then the times, especially for both of them, show that they should have the capability of becoming and rounding into point scorers and All-Americans at the very least during the outdoor season, but most likely during the indoor season as well, which is super exciting. And then obviously they have a ton of eligibility. Like, they could redshirt a year still. We haven't seen by far the best of them yet, and they've already been really some of the best high school runners ever, which is that makes them super exciting. Looking at another freshman, Connor Burns, 13:37 in the 5K, I think, is the biggest calling card. He's just going to be so good at Oregon. Like, he's run 3:58 in the mile, 8:05 in the 3K. I mean, he's going to come in, I think, maybe not have a huge impact in cross country, although he certainly could surprise me there. But I think he's going to just be extraordinarily dynamic when it comes to the track. I mean, these times are very good NCAA times, and I can only imagine once you put him in Jerry Schumacher's system at Oregon, how much better he is going to become in the 5K, in the 3K, in the mile. Like, he is going to be knocking on the door of NCAA qualification, I think, indoors this year if everything goes well. And then he should be someone that qualifies for the outdoor meet as well. So I think he's just someone that you are really banking on being super productive on the track, and then also has the capability of being an All-American in the grass in a few years.
No, I completely agree with that. I think Oregon seems like the perfect fit for an athlete with his range and his accolades. As you mentioned, we may not see him have that instant impact on the grass. We don't know if he'll redshirt this first season, but with all that eligibility, he has the option to do a lot of things. But I think years to come, if we were to guess, I think track is going to be really where we see the very best from him. But that doesn't discount that he could be, once he begins his eligibility for cross, he could be an All-American every single year if things go to plan. But I think, as you mentioned, the indoors and outdoor seasons is probably going to be where his talent is going to lie the most. And
And
moving
then
on
for
to, sorry, go
yeah,
on.
speaking of the track though, let's talk about Tsunoda. Metsatsa, going to Georgetown, has run 147 in the 8, 342 in the 15, 357 in the 1600. Like, just a superbly talented middle distance runner. I think has the potential of coming in and being one of the top 10 800-meter runners in the country from day one. Also, just a very good title racer. Won the New Balance indoor and outdoor national championships in the 800. So he's not only someone that can run fast, but he can run well in championships and take home the win. He going to Georgetown, a very historically great 800-meter middle distance school. I think it's a great fit. And like I said, I really think we've seen a lot of freshmen come in and do extraordinarily well in the NCAA from the get-go. Will Sumner obviously comes to mind from last year. Maybe it would be very surprising to see anybody ever replicate what Sumner did, but I don't think he's going to be miles off, and that's very exciting to have someone that I think is going to be super productive from day one and have them for 4 full years.
I think, as you said, we may not see someone do what Sumner did, but if anyone could, it's him. And he's coming in, and what makes him so exciting, his racing style, he's not afraid to, grab the bull by the horns. He likes to get out there and he likes to make the pace honest. And we've seen that a lot of times in 800. That's what makes you more favorable than your competitors. So I think we could see him definitely make the indoor meet and definitely qualify for outdoors. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him All-American in his first season. He's one of those guys that's extremely dynamic. And it's not like he's bad at the 1500 and the mile either. He's got very respectable times in those. But I imagine we'll see his focus in the 800. And with 4 years to figure it out, I mean, that's why he's so high on this list. He's got plenty of time to get it looked at. And I think he's going to be someone that's extremely, extremely exciting.
I think that those mile times are indicative of just the strength he has as an 800-meter runner, and just shows that like he's got more range and more strength to him than maybe your classic 800-meter runner coming out of high school, which again makes him all the more interesting moving forward. All right, let's wrap up and go to our next group of 5. Coming in 30th in the Stride Reports transfer value rankings, we have Toby Gillen, headed to Ole Miss this year from St. Louis. 29th, another man that we saw on the transfer portal who left to go to Arkansas, Carmi Diego. 28th from Notre Dame, Carter Solomon. Victor Kiprop comes in at 27th. And then 26th, we have another freshman, incoming freshman, Simeon Beerbaum, who put together one of the most exciting, really track seasons that we've ever seen from a high school senior. This list is really interesting. I think you could have put a lot of these guys in a lot of different areas. This is a group that has a lot of eligibility across the board. Let's hear about maybe Gillen. You obviously ran in the same conference as him this last year. What are your thoughts on him moving forward?
I think if anyone, he probably has the most momentum moving into this year out of anyone on this list. So I've obviously had the pleasure of racing him, and he's fantastic, to simply put it. It's cross country. He has 3 years of eligibility for cross. Last year, it doesn't look like he was up to too much in cross, but he actually ended the season injured, and off a 6-week span, he was able to finish top 10 in his conference, which I think shows that just how quickly he can get into shape. Then he has 2 years, both indoors and outdoors. We just saw how good he was this outdoor season. He was simply fantastic. 13:30 to drop his PB. I believe it was 14:07 the season before.
It's crazy.
Yeah, huge stepping stone. And I think what made it even more fantastic is like we see guys run good times, but are they able to then back it up as we move into more of like a tactical race scenario? He has a superb close. He has a close just as strong as anyone else in the 5K. And for his, what I would say, first real season stepping onto the national stage, to just miss All-American, I think second team All-American, I believe it was. Yeah, 13th place in the 5K. That's fantastic for your first real season on the big stage. And I think, as mentioned, the momentum is going to be what moves him forwards. He's now Ole Miss. Cross country, he's going to be someone that is going to far outshine what he did last year.
And I think that's ultimately the question mark for him, right? If we had seen him put together a similar type of cross country season as we saw during the track season, I don't think it's a question of whether he's like a top 20 runner in our transfer value rankings. We do expect him to take a step forward, which is why he lands at number 30. But certainly someone that after this cross country season, he would still have 2 seasons of cross available, we believe. He would be someone that could rise on this list almost certainly.
I couldn't agree more.
Let's talk about Kirimiego real quick. Like I said, another transfer, had a great cross country season this past year. Third at the South Regional, 37th at Nationals, All-American finish. Ran 13:38 during the indoor season before running 13:34 in the 5K outdoors. 28:22 in the 10K, 11th in the 10K at NCAAs during the outdoor season. Just a lot to like from him. Only 2 seasons of cross country left and 1 season on the track in indoor and outdoor. So not a ton of eligibility, but he's someone that for any program comes in, gives you a true low stick and someone who's going to score points for you almost certainly in the 10K when it comes to the outdoor season. Just is an infusion of talent to wherever he goes, and is, even if he's not going to be around for very long, is going to be hugely productive while he's there.
Yeah, he's an instant impact. You know exactly what you're going to get from him. A true workhorse, and I would have said it is lovely that he does have those 2 seasons of cross, because I feel his talent slightly lies on the grass, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him outdo that 37th place that we saw last year. He is someone with just a tremendous amount of talent, and what is nice for programs is they know exactly what they're getting with him. And someone that you do know exactly what you're getting with is Carter Solomon, who has 2 seasons of eligibility across the board. He is probably one of the most reliable runners in the NCAA, and he's also tremendously fast. His times back it up too. We saw 13:26 in the 5K. We saw him qualify for the indoor meet, which he earned an All-American honor with his 7th place. I beg your pardon, I believe that was for the outdoor meet, not the indoor meet. But he was still superb indoors, running 3:57 for the mile. Finished cross country 18th place, and I think he was the real shining star for Notre Dame last year when they needed it. They had a slightly up and down season, but he was that consistent marker for the Fighting Irish, and I think he's someone that is likely to outshine that 18th place. We could see him finish top 15, and a runner as well-rounded as him and someone who performs as consistently as he does, he's very valuable for any team.
Absolutely. 2 full years of eligibility, like you mentioned, almost certainly going to be an All-American, and a high All-American during the cross-country season. So you know what you're getting from him there, and then should be, he's already proven that he can score points for you on the outdoor side, but also should be able to do that indoors. Again, someone, we're talking about 3 seasons of All-American finishes, would not be out of the question, almost likely as we go into this coming year. So super well rounded, and you're getting 2 full years of that. I mean, that is hugely productive. I don't think we're really ever expecting him to become maybe a national title favorite in any of these. Although in cross country, if he continues to develop, maybe he does. But he's someone that you're just going to get a ton of value out of season over season over season for 2 full years. And that's hugely exciting. Going to someone who's maybe not always been quite as consistent, Victor Kiprop obviously shown huge flashes of talent, but just hasn't quite put it together super consistently on the national level. DNF'd in the national meet 2 years ago in cross country, was 66th last year. So a fine result, but certainly not what we expected after seeing him win at Joe Piani, at SECs. Clearly someone that we believe should be more of a top 15 kind of finisher at the national meet. And because of that, we still believe in the talent. We just need to see him kind of put it together. 9th place at 10 in the 10K this past outdoor season. Again, not terrible results this past year, but we just would come to expect a little bit more. But the times speak for themselves. The regular season results speak for themselves, and he has a good amount of eligibility, 2 on the grass, 3 indoors, 2 outdoor. So he has time to figure that out. I just think he would have been ranked a lot more if he had the national performances that we've seen throughout the regular season.
No, I agree. He's got that wild card factor about him. You never quite know what you're going to get, but the talent, as you mentioned, speaks for itself. And I like what you said, that he has plenty of time to get it right, which is why I think he still features on this list, potentially not as high as some people might anticipate. But once he does figure out that consistency and is able to get it right on the big stage, you're looking at someone that does have the potential to be an All-American across 3 separate seasons, and with a particular focus on cross and outdoors in the 10K. He's also a very handy 5K runner when it comes to indoors too. So I think if he can figure that out with all of those years of eligibility he has left, you're looking at someone that is going to be featured very highly in all 3 seasons.
Absolutely. Let's talk about 2 guys coming into the NCAA system, and I'll wrap this into our number 25th ranked runner, who is Laven Kipkemboi. At 26, we have Simeon Bierbaum, one of the best, arguably the best high school runner from the U.S. this past year. Obviously coming in with 4 full seasons of eligibility, and then Kipkemboi, who is coming over to Oklahoma State. Not 100% sure on eligibility, but at least I think 3 full seasons across the board, and who has we haven't really been able to confirm his PRs, but rumored to have run extraordinarily fast. Let me see what we have heard so far. 3:38 in the 1500, 13:45 in the 5K, 8:35 in the steeple. Again, we haven't really been able to confirm those, but that's what we have heard. And so if he can perform like that, and with the amount of eligibility he should have, he is going to be extraordinarily dynamic. We have him 1 spot ahead of Bierbaum, who, as I think you'll describe in a second, also has incredibly exciting PRs.
Yes. Bierbaum probably had one of the most historic high school outdoor seasons ever. But I'll begin with his cross season. His cross season was nothing short of remarkable too. He was 4th at the Champ Sports Cross Country Championships, and then backed that up with a 6th at the NXN Championships. 2 fantastic results. I think he was 14:39 for 5K cross, which is, regardless of the course that you're running on, is remarkably quick. But then it was outdoors where we really got to see the very best from him. He has remarkable range. We saw him run 1:47 in the 800, which is a top time for collegiates already. And then to follow that with a 3:37, that's arguably just as good, if not better. That's a superb time. And then a 3:57 mile, another one of the high schoolers this year that broke that 4-minute barrier. And then another result that I think speaks to his range is his 2 mile is 8:31, which he was superb over all of those distances. And I think that's what makes him exciting. As we mentioned earlier with Connor Burns, I think Oregon is a fantastic fit for him with his range and his accolades thus far. I think just like Burns, we're probably going to see more of him when it comes to that indoor and outdoor season. That's not to say that he's not going to run well in cross country. I think he's going to be fantastic in his own right, but I think we are going to get much of that value that we're putting on him now in those indoors and outdoor seasons. And because he's a true freshman, he's got 4 years to get it right.
Yeah, and I think that's almost certainly going to be the case for his first year, where I think he still could be productive on the grass, but I think you're really going to see him shine when he hits the track. But I think the rest of his career, we could see him really come on as a cross country runner as well, which is very, very exciting. So let's go to our next 5 in our list. 25th, we mentioned, was Laban Kipkemboi. 24th, we have BYU steeplechase star Kenneth Rooks. 23, Patrick Kiprop. 22, Luke Tewalt. 21st, from Wisconsin, Jackson Sharp. So we mentioned Kipkemboi already, but I think the name everyone will probably look at and we will probably get reactions to is Kenneth Rooks, obviously coming off of the best, maybe the second best, I guess, ever steeplechase season behind the record holder Henry Rono. What ran NCAA number 2 time there, was great at the U.S. Olympic or at the World Championship trials, and then it was very solid at those World Championships. Why do we have him at 24 and not higher here?
So the reason he is at 24, eligibility-wise, 2 cross, 2 indoors, 1 outdoor. He is obviously the outright favourite for outdoors, but he can only do that once, which is, I think, the big sticking factor of why he is at 24. You're only getting the biggest part of his value once. That's not to say that he's a bad cross runner or bad indoors, because he's still very good. But I think what a lot of people forget, and which I know we got a lot of flack for when we ranked him, I believe it was 42nd in our Stride Report preseason cross-country rankings. He didn't travel to the national meet. He wasn't in BYU's first 7 last year. And as we mentioned earlier, their 7th guy came 52nd. You're looking at 7 guys pretty much in the top 50, and he still was strong, but he's not making that. So his value when it comes to the grass isn't quite as high. And obviously, you know that he's probably going to win the steeplechase outdoors, but I think the fact that you're only going to see that once is what slightly sets him back. I don't know if you want to expand on your reasoning as well.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. You get 1 year of almost certainly an NCAA title, but we just don't really know what we're going to see from him in cross. Like you said, we BYU had such a good team, full lineup last year, that we really didn't get to see him quite as much as we would have liked. So if he can continue to take a step forward on the grass like we saw this last outdoor season, then maybe this looks kind of ridiculous if he's top 25 at NCAAs this fall. And then indoors, we haven't really seen him put together a hugely impressive indoor season yet. Again, he took a big step forward this past spring, so he absolutely could come out and prove us wrong there. But I think based off of what he's done so far, you're really just getting the majority of his value from that one outdoor season, which is hugely valuable. That's why we have him in our top 25. But it's just hard to put him ahead of guys that are a little bit more complete. And to talk about maybe some of those guys, Patrick Kiprop of Arkansas, coming off an 8th place finish in the 10K this outdoor season, ran 13:24 during the indoor season, was 6th in the 5K during the indoor season, 24th at NCAAs this past cross country season. Again, we're talking about a guy who is going to score you points and be an All-American in 3 seasons. Hugely rare, very important, and has 2 full years to do that for you. Again, that is very much a unicorn when we're talking about these rankings. All-Americans in 3 seasons and giving you 2 full years of it. Hugely, hugely exciting.
And it's going back to the eligibility thing. You're looking at an athlete there that has that completeness that Brooks doesn't necessarily have when it comes to his eligibility lineup, which I think what sets Kiprop apart from some of the other names on this list that we've discussed is potentially they could beat him in any of those seasons, but his completeness is so vital to any coach. And I think if I were on the transfer portal right now, he'd be one of the main names that I'd be looking out for.
Absolutely.
And I think another name that almost has that completeness is Luke Twalt of Wake Forest. He is superb at cross and superb at outdoors. We saw him finish 4th in the outdoor final for 5K. He has 1 cross season left, 2 indoors and 2 outdoors. You're potentially looking at someone that could medal when it comes to the outdoor 5K this coming year. His times are very strong, so it's a 13:43 for 5K, which is strong, but it's his tactical awareness and I think his racing ability which sets him apart. Would anyone have really said that he was going to come and finish as high as he did with that kind of time this season? Probably not, but he is such a strong racer. He's also a very good 1500 meter runner as well, 3:38. So you're looking at potentially, with that second season of indoor eligibility, someone that could qualify in the mile, and then with his racing ability, then finish All-American. And as far as cross goes, he was, let me just double check now, I believe it was in the top 25 when it came to cross country. Yes, 22nd at the NCAA cross, and he was vital for Wake Forest, and he was one of the key components on why they came 5th that year.
Yeah, I mean, he is hugely versatile. You can put him on the grass and he's going to be great at the NCAA championships in the 10K. He's also a great 1500 meter runner. It was kind of a surprise to see him not qualify for nationals in the 15 due to a fall, but he rebounded from that this past outdoor season and had a great national championships in the 5K. There really isn't anything this guy can't do. Again, you kind of wish that he had that extra season of cross country eligibility, but again, you're getting 2 seasons indoors and outdoors where he has proven to be very valuable in a load of different events. It wouldn't surprise me to see him throw down an extremely fast 3K this coming indoor season, because I think that could ultimately be a very, very good event for him. So yeah, a lot to like with T-Walt. And then wrapping up this group, Jackson Sharp. Don't think we need to talk about him too much. Just an insanely good contributor and shows up at the national meets. 3rd in the 5K this past outdoor season. 3rd in the 3K. Ran in the DMR team that finished 3rd as well. 16th at NCAAs during the cross season. Just shows up when the lights are brightest. Unfortunately, only has 1 season left of eligibility. But you're talking about a guy who finished in the top 3 in 2 different races in the indoor-outdoor season, and is a guy that should be a top 10, top 15 guy in cross. There just isn't many people with that on their resume, and despite only having 1 year of eligibility, he's just too good to not be in the top 25.
I completely agree with you. There's not too much to say about him. Superb all round. You know exactly what you're getting. He very, very rarely has an off day, in which when we're getting to like the nitty gritty of these numbers and rankings, that's going to be something that plays a huge factor in it. So for him to be as consistent as he is, he's high on this list, and obviously he would be much higher if he had more than 1 year of eligibility all year round. But moving on to someone that has an abundance of eligibility, that is Colin Solomon, who was simply fantastic his freshman year, particularly when it came to the outdoor season. So obviously he raced all of last year, so he has 3 years of eligibility across the board. He began things, his cross was really quite strong for a true freshman. He was 7th at the Big Sky cross country meet, then 27th in the mountain region, which is a notoriously hard region to compete in, and then an 151st place. I don't think is truly reflective of how good he is, but nevertheless, it's not a horrendous result for someone that's coming in at 18 years old and running against some of the best talent in the nation. Then we moved on to the indoor season, which was fairly respectable, I think a 403 mile. But then it was outdoors where we really started to see just how good he could be. Breaking 147 in the 800 for someone whose event isn't probably going to be the 800. Then a superb 338 1500, and then a 1342 5K at the Stanford Invitational. I think for someone as young as he is, and to see the way he raced, he was fantastic. He didn't make it out of the prelims, unfortunately, for the outdoor season, but someone with so much potential. He was so good in high school. He's already proved himself to be a fantastic college runner. And with 3 years left, I'd be expecting to see a lot from him.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a guy who had so much expectations foisted upon him as he came into the NCAA, one of the best high school runners we had ever really seen. And I think people were a little underwhelmed with his cross country season, but like you said, he did show flashes. The indoor season, there was some flashes as well, but the outdoor season, he really broke out and I think was the runner we hoped and expected he could be. So while this might seem high for someone who had the finishes that he did during the cross and indoor season, you still got to know what kind of talent we're talking about from high school, and he showed that in a big way that outdoor season. So a lot of momentum and a lot of eligibility moving forward. Absolutely someone who could be a All-American in cross country and then a national title contender in the 1500 meter and the mile moving forward. So let's read through the rest of the men on this group of 5. 20th, Colin Solomon. 19th, Ethan Strand. 18th, Liam Murphy. 17th, Casey Klinger. 16th, Parker Wolf of North Carolina. Ethan Strand, I think, was one of the more exciting breakout runners from this past year from North Carolina. 2 years of cross-country eligibility, 2 indoors, 3 outdoor seasons, we believe. And just the explosiveness of his kick was just super awesome to watch. Didn't have the best 1500 meter outdoors, was 12th in the final, but was a big part, had great regular seasons. 746 in the 3K indoors to win the ACC championships with a furious kick. 62nd in the 10K at nationals this past fall. This is a lot more projecting forward of the talent that we've seen so far and a good amount of eligibility left.
Absolutely. He was extremely, extremely impressive when it came to the indoor season. And I think that holds a lot of weight. He was really, really impactful in that North Carolina DMR. And he was one of the primary reasons they ran as fast as they did this past season. Outdoor season, we did see it. He was very, very strong. Unfortunately, he wasn't quite as good as we expected when it did come to that outdoor meet. But as he mentioned, he's still very young and he still has eligibility to burn. That was actually his freshman season on the outdoor oval. So we've got 3 years for him to kind of home in on his skills and make sure that he is up to scratch against the others when it comes to that national stage for the outdoor season. But moving on to someone that also favors the 1500 is Liam Murphy from Villanova. Now, he has 2 years across the board. And what sets Liam Murphy apart from a couple of the other runners He's also a very strong cross-country runner. I believe we have him sat at number 37, the Stride Report preseason rankings. He won the Mid-Atlantic region this past season and then was 92nd at Stillwater. He was also, earlier in the season, strong 4th place finish at Port Short, which last year was a surprisingly strong year for that meet. But I think what the main thing for a runner like him is, yes, he's versatile across all 3 seasons, but indoors and outdoors, he can really shine when it comes to that 1,500 mile range. We saw him run 3:55, and he also ran 7:45 for the 3K, which is a huge result. Then Nova decided to focus on that DMR when we moved to the national championships, and unfortunately for them, they finished 11th, but I don't know if, I'm sure many people saw that video where one of their runners ran into the pole vaulter, which I'm sure didn't help their standings. But moving on to outdoors, he was unbeaten all the way up until the national meet. So he has such experience, very explosive finish, and someone that's so well-rounded, which is why I think having him in this position, he's very valuable to coaches because he really can do it all, and he does have plenty of eligibility to butt.
Yeah, and a great kick and just an explosive runner. Super exciting to watch. Someone who just doesn't have as much eligibility but has proven it on the NCAA level, Casey Klinger at 17. Everybody knows Casey Klinger at this point. You know what you're going to get from him. All-American finishes in all 3 seasons. He was 7th at NCAAs this past fall. He finished 4th in the 3K and 2nd in the 5K indoors, and then was 3rd in the 10K and 11th in the 5K this past outdoor season. Again, just scoring. I wonder if we're ever going to see him win a title, but I think for someone with only 1 outdoor, 1 cross country, and 2 indoor seasons, he is about as high up as you can get for not being a true national title favorite. But he is just hugely valuable in all the points he's going to score for you on the track. And then he's going to be consistently a top 10 guy on the grass. And the guy we have above him, I think, is someone that we think could turn into a very similar kind of runner, Parker Wolf, but he just has an extra year of eligibility. He's proven to be very good on the grass, and then has shown that he can run some quick times on the track as well.
Yeah, Parker Wolf is arguably behind Casey Klinger as someone that is as well-rounded and as consistent as him. You know,
Yep.
exactly what you're getting with Parker Wolf. His times really speak for themselves. This outdoor season, it seemed that he tried to focus on a bit of his speed, ran a lot of 1500s and finished with 340. And when you've got someone that's finishing in the top 10 for cross and has the ability to run 340, that's super, super impressive. And someone else that is going to be as impressive and almost has as much eligibility moving forwards is the NCAA's brand new 800 meter runner. Ben, I'm going to ask you how to pronounce his name because I'm strongly dyslexic. So I don't want to do him any disservice.
Not guaranteeing any proper pronunciations, but Usama El Bachavi, I think, is what we've been going with. Transferring from Angelo State, the D2 level, to Division I Alabama. We expect him to have 3 full seasons of eligibility. At times during the outdoor season, he looks like the best NCAA runner regardless of division. He was first at the Texas Relays running 145 against some of the best in the country like Yusuf Bizimana. He is going to be super exciting. I argue we could have him too low on this list, and after he potentially wins an NCAA title during the indoor or outdoor season, and still has 2 seasons of eligibility, he could be absolutely someone we have in our top 10 this time next year. He is very exciting talent. He's run those fast times. He's won championships. There really isn't a lot to dislike about him. The rest of the men in this group, number 14, Nico Young, 13, Luke Hauser, 12, Handal Roban, and 11th, Adam Spencer. Roban is another one of those guys 3 seasons of eligibility for indoors and outdoors. Just came alive when it mattered the most during the national championships. I think him and Buchabi are going to be are very similar in terms of their eligibility and their ability to run well in national championships and run fast times. But elsewhere, let's talk about Adam Spencer at 11. He was probably one of a big risers because not only his great performances throughout the year, but what he did after this season ended, where he finished third in the 1500 meters.
Yes. Adam Spencer is one of those guys that is going to be extremely impactful when it comes to the indoors and outdoors seasons. He extended his season past NCAAs, and he was simply superb. He was running in the London Diamond League, and he also, I believe it might have been in that same meet, a 3:31 1500. Now that is simply superb, to put it quite frankly, and puts him head and shoulders above the people that beat him during the NCAA season. He's going to be riding a lot of momentum. He's going to be moving forwards into cross where he can still be impactful for Wisconsin, but it's indoors and outdoors where his talents are going to lie, and he's going to have a lot of confidence. And speaking about someone who has a lot of confidence, at 10, we've got Yusuf Bizimana. Now, he is someone who is extremely explosive when it comes to the 800. We saw him win indoors. We saw him come second outdoors. Will Sumner isn't coming back. He's going to be the top returner. I don't think there's too much more to be said. A 145 runner. He's consistent and he loves to try and get it done when it matters. You're looking at a guy who's almost guaranteed a medal indoors and out, which is why I think he's so exciting. And despite having 2 indoors and 1 outdoors, he needs to be high on this list because everyone can feel pretty damn certain about what he's going to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I agree. Not a lot to say there. Let's rewind and talk about Hauser and Nico Young at 13 and 14. I mean, we've seen Nico Young grow up before our eyes. He's been an instant impact runner for NAU in the grass, and he's been a consistent point scorer, an All-American in the indoor-outdoor season. At this point, he has 2 seasons of cross, 2 indoor and 1 outdoor left of eligibility. It's hard to say whether he'll ever win that national title. I think he certainly has a strong argument during the cross-country season, but just the way he runs and his lack of kick make it a little difficult for him during the track season, but he's still going to score you points almost always, which makes him a hugely valuable runner. And then Luke Hauser, I mean, was very solid throughout the track season, didn't have his best outdoor finish, running 10th at NCAAs, but won an NCAA title in the mile this indoor season. Huge result, and was 42nd at cross country last year. And I've talked about him on the Blue Oval podcast. Didn't have a great regular season, but was so good during the national championships. He has 2 seasons of cross, 1 indoor and 1 outdoor. He's just, again, someone who is hugely valuable and has proven can win you an NCAA title across a lot of different seasons. He's just, I love how well-rounded he is and how explosive he could be.
I completely agree. And I think what speaks volumes about him is he tends to perform when the lights are brightest, as they say. He didn't have the best regular season, as he mentioned, but then to pull out a 42nd place finish at the National Cross, absolutely huge. And to have that from your mile runner, who also happens to be the mile national champion, is something that I think any coach would value extremely highly. And I think just having the eligibility doesn't cross is pretty valuable. And unfortunately, with only 1 and 1 left for indoors and outdoors, he's going to have to make that count. But he's an individual who knows how to make it count.
Absolutely. And we already mentioned number 10 on our list, but let's go through the next 5 names. Number 10, Yusuf Bizimana. 9, Victor Kipyego. 8th, Joe Wascom. 7th, Graham Blanks. Anas SIE rounds out this group in sixth. So we already talked about Busy Mana. I think a lot of people might be surprised to see Victor Kipiego of UTEP this high at ninth. But you look at the way he finished the outdoor season, ending up running 8:32 and finishing third in the steeplechase. He's going to come back. He's going to be the second best returner in the steeplechase. Plus, you throw in what he did during the cross season last year, which wasn't great, but he did finish 102nd, which shows that he has potential there. And when you throw that on top of how much improvement we saw during the outdoor season, again, he started out like not nearly as impressive. He ran 9:15 at the beginning of the outdoor season, the steeplechase, and finished at 8:32. Clearly, he had took a leap during that season. And the eligibility, which is what really is exciting. 3 seasons of cross country, 3 outdoors, and 2 indoors. I mean, after Rooks leaves, he will probably be the favorite in the steeplechase. Wouldn't be surprised to see him win at least one title. And it looks like he could certainly be an All-American threat for the next few years in cross country. Just the vast potential and the exciting highs that we've seen from him combined with the eligibility land him at our number 9 spot.
Absolutely. He's someone that it felt like every single race we were seeing a better and different version of him. As Ben's mentioned, eligibility is something that really sets him apart from the others, and he does have that potential with steeplechase being his primary event. He is one of the top returners behind Rooks, and I think Ben rightly said that we're expecting him to win a title, and he has 3 years to do it, which makes it extremely exciting. Talking of potential national title winner, we're going to talk about an actual national title winner, and that is Joe Wascombe. We know he won the 1500 meter title back in 2022. He is looking at 2 cross, 2 indoors, and 1 outdoors. Cross country, he's solid. You kind of know what you're going to get. It's not as strong as, say, Hauser is in cross country, but he did finish 28th in the West region this past season, which is a notoriously difficult region to run in. Then we moved into indoor season and he ran a blistering 2:18 1K and then followed that with a 3:51 mile. That mile, I think, speaks for itself. And then we saw him finish 4th. And then he followed that with a huge 2nd place outdoors to back up his gold from the previous year. This season, he was another one that carried it on, went into the postseason. He ran 3:34, a new PP for him, and then also was 2nd at USA's and went to the World Championships. He's someone carrying a lot of momentum. He's going to be really valuable for any team indoors and out.
Yeah, not a complete zero in cross, but just one of the more consistent 1500 meter miler runners that we've seen in terms of his floor at a national championships is so high, where a lot of runners we've seen drop to like 10th or 12th and not score points. He is consistently within the top 5. His NCAA championship win from 2 years ago now was a little bit of a surprise, but he's clearly taken a step forward and is now just a constant title threat. And that's what lands him at number 8. Graham Blanks at 7, 2 seasons of cross, 2 seasons of outdoor, 3 indoors, just has continued to build momentum season over season. 2nd at the 5K this outdoor season, 6th in the 10K, double point scorer there, qualified in the 3K and the 5K indoors last year, and ended his season on the grass finishing 6th. He is hugely dynamic, has a lot of eligibility left, and is just going to, well, again, almost like a Casey Klinger with a lot of eligibility. I would be surprised to see him ever win a national title, but I just think he's going to score you a ton of points on the track and always give you one of the best low sticks in the country when it comes to the grass.
Exactly. He's consistent. He's aggressive. He gets it done no matter what. And I think that was what really sets him apart from the others on this list. As you mentioned, he is a Casey Klinger with a lot more eligibility. And I don't think many people, bar him, were expecting him to finish just as high as he did in the outdoor 5K, but that really showed us just how good he can be. And as far as cross goes, I think cross is probably his strongest discipline out of the three. And
yet he still finished second in the 5K outdoors, which is amazing.
Exactly. So he proved us wrong there. So we're expecting potentially another huge finish and potentially a top 5 finish from
Absolutely.
cross.
Nas SIE in 6, 2 seasons of indoor and outdoor. We've seen the PRs and they're sparkling, and you can maybe get into that. But we haven't seen him like put it together at the national stage. He's put together some great conference championship victories, but we're still kind of waiting for him to take hold of a national title. He's certainly going to come into almost every season as one of the favorites just on the consistency and his top end ability to run really fast times during the regular season.
Yeah, as you mentioned, those PRs, they are sparkling. Coming into the NCAA, it was a 3:34, 1500, and since then he's run a 3:36 within the NCAA season. A 3:50 mile where he just missed the mile national record. And then he backed it up with that indoor season as 7:41 3K, which is a remarkable time. And he's just one of those runners that's just missing out on medals. I believe it was a 4th, a 5th. So he's knocking on the door for something, and he does have 2 years to get it done. While we have been expecting such big things from him, he still has the time to figure those things out and get those medals, which we know he can do. Because if he can translate his times to those performances, you're looking at someone that can medal consistently. And as I mentioned, he's got 2 seasons of eligibility across indoors and outdoors to do it.
Absolutely. Let's wrap it up with our top 5 of the Stride Report's transfer value rankings. Really excited about this group. Kai Robinson of Stanford, Nathan Green of Washington comes in our 4th slot. In the number 3 slot, we have Habtum Samuel Calata of New Mexico. In the number 2 spot, we have Drew Bosley. And our number 1 ranked transfer value target is Fawad Misaudi of Oklahoma State. And again, I want to reiterate, these are transfer value rankings. We're not saying that anybody's leaving. We're just simply ranking athletes and not based purely off talent, but based off of eligibility as well. And Misaudi is the perfect combo of both of those two things. You look at what he did since the national title this past cross-country season, where he had a huge breakout 12th place finish. He has been on an absolute tear, 7-41 in the 3K, culminating with a win in a 1,200 meter leg that helped Oklahoma State win a DMR title, and the individual title in the 3K. He came into the outdoor season as one of the 1,500 meter favorites. Ultimately, didn't have a great day, finishing 9th, but did run 3:35 during the year. He has 3 seasons of cross-country eligibility, 2 indoor and outdoor. He just has so much and is going to be a title threat indoor and outdoor. He's already won that title, one of those titles, and is going to be should be moving forward a top 20 cross-country guy in each of those 3 seasons. Hugely, hugely valuable. There's hard to dislike about anything about his resume, but you could say the same thing about a lot of these guys in the top 5.
I completely agree. I think you nailed it on the perspective. He is that guy, and he is going to be a national title favorite, both indoors and outdoors. But I think what's quite exciting about him in cross country, we actually only saw him race twice in his freshman year, and those 2 results were huge. 6th at Big Ten cross country, which again was against a lot of his teammates. Yeah. Big 12, sorry. Against a lot of his teammates who are cross-focused runners, and then a huge 12th at your first national meet. That's seriously impressive. Maybe we're going to see a lot from him this cross-country season. Could he crack the top 10? I'm not sure. He has the potential to do so. We know how good he is on the track, but someone that is and probably is the biggest cross-country runner in the NCAA. That is Kai Robinson. People are very excited about him, and rightly so. He won both the won both the 5K and the 10K outdoors, riding a lot of momentum. Cross-country, he was good last year. I think we can expect a little more from him this year, and he's certainly in that national title conversation. I don't think many people were anticipating him to pick up both titles, but he proved a lot of people wrong. So this cross-country season, I'm sure he's going to outdo his position last year.
Yeah, he won Notticombe last year with a great kick, was 10th at NCAAs in cross country. Followed that up with a 13:11 win at BU in the 5K in the indoor track. Didn't have the best indoor national championships, but again, was coming off of running world cross country championships for Australia. But then just had a slow outdoor season where he gradually worked up, ran some decent times, and then really capitalized at outdoor championships. He comes in at number 5, 2 seasons of cross, 2 indoor, 1 outdoor. Hugely valuable runner. But let's go to number 2. We'll jump around a little bit. Another national title favorite in the cross country season, Drew Bosley, 1 season of cross country eligibility, 2 indoors, 2 outdoor, had that great national meet in the fall, and then follow that up with a superb indoor season. We didn't really get to see him outdoors, but clearly one of the best and most talented runners in the country.
Absolutely. Cross country, we saw him and Nico Young really take that race to all of their competitors. They were aggressive and it worked. This year, I can imagine we're going to see something similar. He is certainly in the conversation to be a national title contender. Indoors, as you mentioned, he was remarkable. Got that collegiate record in the 3,736, which was a superb run. And I don't know if people were thinking that the 3,000 meters was going to be his strongest discipline. 5K, we've also seen him run 13:13, which is in the top 10, I believe, NCAA all time when it comes to the 5K. Outdoor season, as you mentioned, we didn't get to see too much of him. At 28:18, 10K is good, but I don't think that's truly reflective of how good he's going to be. I think coming in, he's had that time to recover from what seemed to be an injury last outdoor season. I believe he's fit. I believe he's going to be ready, and it's going to be very exciting. And he does have the eligibility to support it, especially on the indoor and outdoor front. 1 cross season, so he's got to make the most of it. But he's a strong contender across all 3 disciplines.
Absolutely. And let's wrap it up with Nathan Green, 3 seasons of cross-country eligibility, 2 indoors, 2 outdoor, winning the national title in the outdoor 1,500 meters. Very impressive. And then Haptum Samuel Kalata coming into New Mexico, 4 full years of eligibility. We believe he is 19 years old and has run 13:13 in the 5K and 27:28 in the 10K. Just insane PRs. And he could end up being our number 1 runner after a year in the NCAA system. We have him at number 3 below 2 guys that have been proven to be NCAA title favorites. But he has a ton of talent, and we're super excited to see him in the NCAA system.
Absolutely. If he's able to make that adaptation to being in America, racing in America, I think he's going to be superb. Those times speak for himself. And as you mentioned, he's ranked below 2 guys that we've seen it so consistently from, which I think what makes him exciting. And that abundance of eligibility, he has time to adjust. He's got years and years. So I think that's going to really help his case and why he's 3rd. And someone that also has a lot of eligibility behind them is Nathan Green. He was the national title winner in the 1,500 this outdoor season. And even though his outdoor season got off to like a fairly late start, he was superb. Nobody could stop him. That close on the final lap of the 1,500 was nothing short of remarkable. And indoors, he's also got the mile PR to back it up at 3:52. So he's someone that has eligibility to burn, is someone that is going to be so strong indoors and outdoors. Yes, he may not be a strong cross-country runner compared to some of the other names on this list, but to win a national title at such a young age, we could potentially see him do it indoors twice, outdoors 2 more times. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's what really sets him apart from some of the others.
Absolutely. All right. That is our top 50 list plus our honorable mention. Thank you for sticking with us, Finn. I appreciate you taking the time to do this with us. Be on the lookout for our women's transfer value rankings. We're really excited about this. Let us know what you think. I'm really excited to see this list as we move forward. Plenty to talk about. But Finn, any last comments before we sign off?
No, I hope you enjoyed it. It's obviously a very brand new segment, so a lot of fun putting it together, so I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did.
All right. Thank you, everyone, and we'll talk to you next time.